Well, tonight I'm going to do a review on something that's been around a long time. The Trangia alcohol stove. Now the chances are if you've been backpacking or bikepacking at some stage you've probably had one of these. I can first recall using one in the 1980s on a camp I did in Wales. But they actually got made a long time before that. They got made in the 1950s by a Swedish company. And it just goes to show that sometimes you can't improve on something that's really well made and it's almost bulletproof in its construction. I went on a 3-day hiking trip with a friend in the Flinders Ranges, and that was about 12 years ago, as I recall. I took with me what I thought was a good stove. It was a new stove. I bought it a few days before, and I took some gas cartridges with me, and I went through my gas really fast. My friend, on the other hand, went through I don't know, a fraction of the methylated spirits that she brought with her for her alcohol burner in her Trangia, and we had a bit of a conversation about this, about what was the better cooking mechanism, and I came to the conclusion that the Trangia was massively better, in part because the way it's constructed, it protects the burner from the wind, from the environment, and whereas mine was exposed, and so I went through the fuel and things were getting colder really a lot easier. It required a lot more fuel to actually heat things up. So as soon as I finished with this camp, I went to my local store and I bought myself a Trangia. I got a version that was non-stick, so it was perhaps the next level up to the basic model, but I've had it ever since and I've used it numerous times. So it's certainly not an unboxing or anything like that. This is a well-used, well-loved Trangia, but it doesn't matter if a little bit of the non-stick coating is missing. These things work adequately well and they'll work for a long time. The Trangia is easily kept together with a strap, and inside it's organized a little bit like a Russian doll, with objects in the middle. There is 2 bowls, one slightly larger than the other, and the top is also a frying pan. So what you do is you remove the strap, you turn this upside down, try and work out where the wind's coming from if there's a breeze, and put that in the direction of the breeze, and this acts quite adequately as a protection from the wind. That was one of the major selling points to me when I first went and bought one, having seen my friend so easily cook things efficiently when there was a breeze. So the clips here are what your pots rest on, and if we're going to fry we just turn them up like this and that fits neatly on top. I have fried some things on it before, but I think it works more efficiently with bowls that sit neatly within it where the flame is protected. In the bag, and it's worthwhile mentioning, it's good to keep the bag, don't throw it away. You have the burner, and this is somewhat of a simmer plate, which I'll get to shortly. You open the burner up and take the top away, and that's what you pour the fuel in, which is this methylated spirits. You can use some other fuels, as I understand it. I never have. I've always used meth. But I've done several cooks lately and I've still not gone through one of these bottles. So what I do is, it depends how much cooking I'm going to do as to how high I fill it. And you'll probably notice that the liquid recedes a little bit as it's getting absorbed by the burner. I'll put a little bit more in it. That goes inside in the middle. And getting back to the simmer plate, that's the term I use, I'm not sure if it's the official term. One of the disadvantages with this burner is when it's on. Okay, you can get a gas burner for the Trangia, and of course if you have a gas burner You can basically adjust it, so you turn the flame up or down, and you can simmer if you need to. You can't really do that easily with this unless you use this. So if the flame is too high, and I have found this recently when I was cooking some sausages, there's obviously a lot of fat from sausages, and the flame actually came around and caught fire some of the fat, and I had to take basically just blow out the flame. So what I did in that case was I just put the simmer plate on with like a fork or something like that, because obviously it's very hot, and I just closed that slightly to let less flame through. But when I'm cooking things in the pans, I generally don't do that. I generally cook it on full force, and that's what I'm going to do tonight, because tonight we're going to have pasta, something very simple and very easy to do if you're off camping. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put some water in this, and I'm going to turn it on, or I should say I'm going to light it. And before I put that on, let's just light the flame. All you need is matches. You can either light it and then take the flame away and put the match out. All I do though, so I don't burn myself, I just drop it in there, because I'm going to use all the fuel, and at the end of it it's going to be dry, so I just tip it upside down on, and the burnt match will be there. So light the match, and I'll just wait for that to properly catch, and you'll see it probably coming through the sides, through the holes very shortly. Put this out the way. I'm not going to use this, so I might just keep this handy in case I need to put out the flame, because that's another way of doing it. And as you can see, that's starting to catch pretty well. And from there, I'm just going to put the water on it. Now, I can put this on as it is, but one of the other things that you have is a tool that basically grips quite nicely the rim of all the pots and the pan. We'll just keep that handy, because we're going to use that very shortly. You'll also notice I've basically MacGyvered up some utensils here of sorts. These are just normal spoons and spatulas, and I've just sawn off the edges there so I could fit them in the pan when it's closed up. And if I was going camping in a backpacking way, I'd probably put some knives and forks in there as well. So don't need to do that today, but they will fit quite nicely. So I'll keep these aside, and we'll let that cook for a while. It shouldn't be too long. These things are actually pretty efficient. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of the Trangia stove. And from the outset, as far as I'm concerned, they're mainly all pros. It's reasonably inexpensive. I got mine about 10, 11, 12 years ago, and it costs probably another $100 on top of what you would normally pay, because I got the one with the non-stick pots and pans. But I've got a lot of use out of that, as I'm sure you can tell from some of the scuff marks on it and some of the coating that's actually been lost over time. But it still works really well, so you know, value for money in the long run. Yes, the burner can be a little bit of a headache at times, because as I say, if you want to simmer things, it's a bit harder to do than with a gas burner, but the fuel's a lot cheaper. The slightly annoying thing about the fuel though is that it will leave soot on the bottom of the pots and pans, which you've got to clean off afterwards. Some people say that if you mix 10% water with it, it does it less or not at all. I think it still does. I've tried it. Whether it's less or not is neither here nor there, because you still got to wash it at the end of the day. But mainly all pros. I've read about this in magazines, and actually it's rated fairly highly even now, years later, compared to all these new stoves that come out. And yeah, it's almost an idiot-proof stove. Okay, so it's boiling pretty well now, and I'm going to put some pasta in here. I could have put it in probably a bit sooner, but that's because I was talking. So, cooking for 2 people tonight. So I'm going to put a fair bit in. and I'm going to give it a little bit of a stir. And we just let that cook for a while, and when the pasta is ready, we'll add the next ingredients. One of the things I might actually do is use this Trangia stove when I'm actually using the boat, and it's actually already got an alcohol burning stove that's in the cabin, but I didn't really want to cook too much in the cabin because you get oil and grease everywhere, which is not the best thing. And also I was a bit uncomfortable with how high the flames actually got, so I prefer to cook in the cockpit. And I've done that with another stove, but I thought this one would be just a little bit better because when you're at anchor you are generally in some breeze, and I just thought it would protect the flame from the breeze much better. So I might give that a go in some of the videos we've got coming up, and we'll see how we go. But I think we're just about ready to add the sauce. So the pot is quite hot now. What I've got to do is drain the water, and I do have a colander for camping, but I wouldn't take it backpacking with me, so for today I'm just going to simply cover this over as best I can and drain some of the water. Don't have to drain it all. From there, just put it back on and quickly put the sauce, which is roasted vegetables tonight. Put some of that on. I've noted that the flame is dying down. That's not a great problem. There's still enough heat in here, even if the flame goes out. So let's stir that in. I've got a couple of other things I'm going to put in. Oop, lost a piece of pasta there. Okay, so one of those things is spinach, bag of spinach. I'm going to put it all in. Oop. Just got to get it to wilt. Spinach does that normally pretty quickly. And making a little bit of a mess. The other thing that I'm going to put in tonight is I'm going to put a few olives in. Kalamata olives, which I've got to say I quite like. Some people say it's a bit of an acquired taste. Didn't used to like olives. I do now. So put a few of these in. I bought a sauce the other day that actually had olives in as part of it. I quite liked it, so I thought, why not? Let's do that tonight. Let's do a little bit more sauce. We're getting pretty close to being ready to serve it up. Just want to properly cover up this spinach. By the time I serve it up, it'll probably be pretty much ready to go. So, as I said before, one of the more annoying things with the alcohol fuel is it does leave some salt on the bottom of the pan, which means that whoever has this pan, I would just probably put it in this so You don't get it on your clothing or anything if you're in a camp. You're just sitting with it on your lap. But the other one is clean, so well, we start with that one. I'm making a little bit of a mess tonight, aren't I? Maybe I should do a video on cleaning things up. Incidentally though, on that subject, when you're cleaning these things up in a camp situation, if you're backpacking, obviously you don't have any, you know, a sink with you. You would if you're going four-wheel driving or something like that. And all you need to do is, in addition to the things that you keep in here, put in a really small container of detergent. You don't need much at all, a couple of drops if that, and get a scouring pad. And if that's too big, you just cut that into pieces and put a little bit of a scouring pad. And if it's the anti-stick ones, the anti-stick bowls that is, you find that it's really easy to clean on them. What I do is, if I'm cooking for one, I'll cook myself a meal and I'll take it off and I'll boil up some water while the burner is still going. And I'll either use that for a cup of tea or something like that, or a coffee, or that can be what I clean the dishes, and I'll then put that into the other container and give things a clean, and that'll be how I do it. It's really easy to do. So that's it. Trangia stove, pasta with some spinach and Kalamata olives, and that's dinner for tonight.